out, admit whoever else from the waiting room as they arrive. So I just want to say welcome to everyone to the third question and answer session for the Maricopa Highway demonstration project. Most of you, I recognize your names. You've been involved with our biweekly CAC meetings at this point. So a lot of this is just going to be a review of what we discussed at the last CAC meeting. We do have some updates since then. So we're going to go through, for the benefit of those of you who have not been involved with the CAC so far, or who have not seen the presentation so far, we're going to go through the presentation. If you can go to the next slide, Dana. So we're going to give you an overview of where we are in the project, how our budgeting and purchasing process is going. We are nearing the end of that process where we've identified our materials vendors and our contractors. And then we'll go into just general ideas about how we are going to do the implementation, and then just give you an idea about next steps. We do have another CAC meeting that is coming up in a few weeks. And just overall, in terms of schedule, we're looking at the middle to end of August for our implementation. We've been shooting for the beginning of August, but our Caltrans permit process has taken a little bit longer than we would have liked. It is what it is at this point. We have to roll with it and work with the Caltrans process. But we're pretty hopeful that we're making headway on that, and we should have an exact date pretty soon. So
Tony, if I could pipe in on that.
Yeah, go for it.
Caltrans, yeah, we work with them on other permitting too, and everybody seems impacted by COVID. All of the Caltrans staff is working from home. Some are coming in once a week, to give us updates on permits and so on. So it just seems like we've got delays all the way around, as well as one of the primary points of this project was to overlap school. And I think, I don't know if they've committed when they're going to decide, but I think they're going to be deciding in the month of July here. I thought I heard a few dates coming up in the middle of July that they'll go ahead and commit. So, in some respects, there was delays with Caltrans getting permits related to COVID and all of that, but it seems to, in respects, be working out ideally that we'll have an ideal overlap with school. Because for instance, if they didn't meet in person in the fall, we're not going to see that quick impact in the morning and afternoon during start and evening, which is key, even though it's very brief. But, if we start in August, middle of August, that 6-month period will last up into January. And hopefully we'd see an overlap at least then, and we might even consider some minor extension to really show the overlap.
Right. So right now on the Ojai Unified School District website, the start of school is scheduled for August 10th, I believe. There was an error in the previous posted date, which we were basing our schedule around. So I'm glad they updated that. But they said that they're having a meeting about it, and we'll announce what they're doing on July 10th. So we should know more. We are going to avoid the first week of school, regardless of whether school's in session or not. We have to plan for it. We're going to assume that school will be in session, so we're going to plan for that outcome and not do the install for the first week of school. I think as a parent, I would not want that in my school district. So yeah, that's just a few notes on scheduling, but I'm going to let Dana take it away from here and walk us through the update, and then we can have any questions at the end of the presentation.
Cool. Okay, so I guess for several of you who might be new, this is, like Tony said, this is the Go Ojai demonstration project, Maricopa Highway demonstration project. And so what we're talking about here is the temporary 6-month demonstration of the city's proposed permanent project for Maricopa Highway. So the project is going to be between Ojai Avenue and Koyama / East El Roblar. We're looking at, approximately 3/4 of a mile of bike lanes on both sides of the street. We also have curb extensions and other intersection treatments to make the intersection safer for pedestrians, as well as a couple of different strategies at Nordup High School at Church and Pyree, kind of around there. So the demonstration project is demonstrating the design for the permanent project as much as possible. And if you have not yet, you can check out the site plan on the website just to see what the design is looking like. We won't go over it in too much detail in this presentation, but and then the timeline, obviously, like we just said, summer 2020, really hoping to be able to get this in August. So where we're at right now is we are working to acquire the permit. We have officially submitted the permit. We've been going back and forth with Caltrans a bit. Soon here, about a month before the implementation, whenever that gets set, we will be installing our sensors, which I can show you in the next couple of slides. That's going to be collecting our before data collection. So things like, bicycle and pedestrian counts and travel speeds, and vehicle counts as well, which will enable us to evaluate the impact of the project. I'm going to be going over a little bit of our implementation timeline and just how we execute these projects. And that's something that we'll also be finalizing in the last month and a half here. So this is our third public Q&A. We have had 4 community advisory committee meetings so far. We'll have our 5th one on July 15th. I'll remind you guys about that at the end. And then we're just also in the stage of continuing to print outreach materials, get some signage on the corridor to make sure that as many people as possible are aware. And the next and final step, this kind of phase 4 here of implementation prep, is really just the nitty-gritty details of getting everything to the site, getting the materials, prepping the volunteers, and executing the project. So we're getting close. This is what I was referring to with the sensors. So a lot of you have seen this before, but just a reminder, we are going to be installing these sensors. They're very small. They're kind of like spray paint can size, maybe. We're installing them at 4 intersections along the route to collect really important data that will give us an accurate picture of how the project is functioning. And like I said, this will be done 1 month prior to implementation. So that's what they look like. They will be attached to either existing poles, or I think in one location the city's putting in another pole. They'll be very discreet, so there's no concern there, but it'll be good to get that going. So far, just to catch us up on outreach, like I said, we've had 4 of our community advisory committee meetings. We've had 2 Q&As. We've had a couple of office hours, which have just been extra times for Q&A. And then we've also been meeting with our technical advisory committee. Our technical advisory committee is comprised of staff from Caltrans, from the county fire and police departments. We've also been, the community hospital has been involved in reviewing the project as well. So we've had a lot of different eyes on the project locally who are on the corridor as well, which is good. We do have a web page. If you haven't checked it out, I will leave the final slide up, which has the web page on there. We also have an Instagram account. I don't know how many of you use Instagram. We've tried to also do occasional posts on the city Facebook page, but we're trying to leave that open right now for COVID-related news. So we haven't been flooding it too much with the project information. And then I'll also remind you at the end, we do have a pre-implementation survey on the website, which would also be really helpful to fill out for us. So that will be used, for a survey during the implementation, after the implementation during the evaluation period, to get that before and after comparison. So now I'm going to go into just a little bit of how where we're at with the budget and curating the materials. So we have $100,000 for the materials for this project. And so that primarily, that includes the main items like the paint that we're using for the striping, the planters, and the physical delineators. So this is still very much in progress, but this is kind of what it looks like. We break it down by different elements. We identify the very specific project material that we need for every maybe even more specific element, and we calculate the quantities and the amounts that we need. And so then after we're calculating the total cost, we make sure to find the proper source. So it's just a note on some of these materials. The planters and the delineators, which are there called the armadillos. That's just kind of another term that we use for them, and you'll see why if you haven't seen them yet. But those might take several weeks to get to us because they're coming from Spain. It's a manufacturer that we're very familiar with. They supply materials for these types of projects all around the world and the country. So, you know, this column of our budget is particularly important for making sure that we're ordering materials ahead of time and we're aware of all of the lead times that go into procuring them. And then finally, on that note, we will make sure to keep track of every single material item. We're going to have storage pods in the Nordhoff High School parking lot to help store the materials, and hopefully that will be enough. But if not, we'll have to maybe figure out another temporary solution. But a lot of the implementation prep is organizing the materials and getting them to places along the corridor so that they can be easily deployed during implementation. So we'll be noting all of that in this internal spreadsheet as well. And then this is just a glance at some of those materials. So this is a screenshot from the site plan, which is on the webpage if you want to take another look. So in the top left there, those are the armadillos or the Zikla delineators. And so those are going to be evenly spaced along the route between the parking lane and the bike lane. So right along that buffer line between the parking lane and the biking. And just a note about those, they are low profile. They're only about 5 inches high. They're very durable. They're bolted into the ground or into the asphalt. But we thought about that because the bike lane and buffer combine vehicles potentially. And so, you know, these are easily mountable by large trucks and emergency vehicles. So we also decided to use those because in the case that that the on-street parking isn't full, you know, 100% or even 50% of the time, they'll provide extra protection for the bike lane and kind of fill the gap between the planters there. And then the planters, those are what they're going to look like. They're also pretty low profile. They're not, you know, highly impactful. They will also be bolted into the ground. And the white stripes there are retroreflective. So that's really important for cars traveling at night to be able to see them and make sure that they're really visible. And we are working with the Community Advisory Committee. They have been awesome in helping us find the right plants to put in them because we want it to look awesome. So, and then the paint that we're using is actually something that's more permanent than we would probably usually use for these types of demonstration projects, but it is a Caltrans approved material. So that's what the contractors will be using to stripe all of the markings. And then the final major element to the site plan is going to be signage. We're going to have a banner as well. And so all of the signage and the banner will have opportunities for feedback. So they'll have that post-implementation survey that I mentioned, as well as other suggestions for how people can give feedback and let us know how the project is functioning, since we won't be able to be out there every single second of every day. So we're going to be relying a lot on that feedback. And so this is a glance into how we organize the implementation. This is a screenshot from another project's implementation time, but basically we will create a plan, you know, down to either the half hour or the hour every single day of, you know, what the different elements of the project are, who is leading them, whether it's a contractor, whether it's us at Street Plans, volunteers, or the city. And we'll note how many volunteers are needed, and we will pre-assign volunteers to tasks so that when they come to check in, you know, that morning, we'll be able to tell them exactly where to go and who's leading them. So there are two main elements to implementation, and I go through it a little bit more fine-grained toward the end. We've actually broken it out into 4 phases, but there's always kind of the pre-implementation. So what happens before we actually start applying the paint and putting the delineators down. And that's a bunch of, you know, that includes the traffic control setup for this project in particular. And it also includes removing some of the conflicting existing striping. organizing the materials, just prepping the site. And then, like I said, during the implementation, during the actual build days, it will be very organized. You know, street plans, we will be out there basically overseeing everything with the city as well. And that is something that we will actually have out there with us in the field, as well as the drawings, so that we can refer to them during the implementation. Okay, so this is a high-level rundown of the different roles, and then if any of you are interested in volunteering, this is going to be particularly relevant because you'll know, you know, kind of what you will be able to do during the implementation. So street plans, like I said, we're going to be coordinating all of the contractors and the volunteers, making sure that everything is going smoothly. But there are aspects of the implementation that we will also be physically doing with our hands, with volunteers as well. So that specifically is going to be the conflict zone markings, and the conflict zones are those green dashed. Those are areas that go in front of either driveways or through intersections, basically to guide bicyclists along there and to alert drivers that bikes will be crossing there. So we will probably be measuring and marking and painting those. And the contractors will be doing all of the rest of the striping. That's kind of the plan for now. We'll also be installing the project signage with volunteers, and a really big component is going to be planting these planters. We have 80 of them. So, you know, it's going to be moving the soil around, putting the soil in, planting the plants. So we'll need plenty of volunteers for that. And if anything else comes up, you know, as soon as we get the project implementation, we're going to be sending around an online volunteer sign up form. And so you'll be able to sign up for those 30-minute, 1 hour, 2 hour slots of time that you can give to each task if you wish to volunteer. And then as far as the contractors, we're still finalizing their scopes, but they're going to be handling, you know, we know they're going to be handling any existing striping removal and the removal of the entire project. They're going to be doing most of the striping, and they're also going to be drilling the holes for the installation of barriers. So that's for the installation of both the planters and those armadillos. The city is going to be helping us with general oversight and is also going to be assisting street plans, as well as the volunteers. So the volunteers will basically be taking the lead of the city and street plans on their various tasks. And then these are just some images from some other projects. So down in the lower right there, that is somebody painting a conflict zone. So that's what that's going to look like. We use, you know, chalk lines and measuring tapes to make all of the lines. The duct tape you see there makes straight edges, and then we fill in with the green. And then also the staging and planting. Typically, you know, if we have larger areas of painting, we have somebody kind of start with the edges and then fill in the beginning, but I don't think, or fill in the middle, I'm sorry, but the conflict zones probably won't be that large a painted area. So hopefully with a lot of volunteers, we should be able to do them pretty quickly. And so, like I said before, the implementation, you know, there are some, half of the phases here that you see on this slide are before actually anything happens, before any striping actually goes down. So in this phase 1 here, greater than 3 days, so that's 6 weeks, 4 weeks out from implementation, a couple weeks out to, you know, anything more than 3 days, that's ordering the storage pods, ordering the materials and organizing them within the pods. That's turning on our sensors, installing anything, or basically just prepping the site. So where there is on-street parking, you know, there are small amounts along the street, but we'll be closing that off. And we will have a volunteer implementation meeting or training, I guess maybe a week or 2 weeks prior to implementation. The second phase of implementation is only several days before the striping starts going down and the marking starts to happen. So our traffic control will be deployed. The contractors will have to remove any of the conflicting striping and then clean the street and prep it for the paint to go down. And so phase 3 is basically the main build days, which we're blocking off right now 7 days. So, you know, it starts out with the measuring and marking of all of the striping and the pavement markings. The striping will go down, we'll paint the conflict zones. You know, everything that I just described, that will happen on overlapping days. A lot of things will be happening simultaneously. So that's why we'll have multiple captains kind of leading each task and leading the overseeing of all of this work. And then phase 4 is the project removal. So after the 6 months, we have to come down, come out and redo the traffic control. So we have to close the lanes again. And the demonstration project will be completely removed, and the roadway will have to go back to its original condition. So that will include replacing any of the thermoplastic that was removed. And there has been talk of, there's a potential to leave it if it is going well, but that is probably going to require more permitting from Caltrans. It's not totally off the table, but we're going to be preparing for that project removal after the 6 months up front. So these are the next steps, and then I guess we'll open it up to if anyone has any questions. So installing the sensors happening a month prior to implementation. We're currently in the middle of processing the Caltrans permit comments. We hope to be able to turn those comments back around to them by middle of next week. A major component of that is, we have both the drawings, and then we also have a memorandum that we're working on that just contains some of the ways in which we are being kind of forward thinking with this design and how it might conflict with the typical highway standards mandated by Caltrans. And so once we resubmit the comments by the middle of next week, we hope to be able to get, an idea from Caltrans or, a certain level of confidence that we will be able to implement the project in middle to end of August. Typically, we like to leave ourselves about 6 weeks. We like to set the date 6 weeks out. And so that would be pretty much then. We'd be getting really close to that. The final Community Advisory Committee meeting is going to be Wednesday, July 15th. But then we are also going to have another follow-up meeting with any volunteers. And also part of, I guess, what we could talk about if anyone has any ideas is that we are actually going to be giving a presentation to the Rotary Club, just to let them know about the project. And, so that's kind of a volunteer group that we will be giving a presentation to. So if anyone else knows, I know you all have your own groups that you're a part of, so it would be awesome if we could get recommendations on, if we need to do a similar thing in order to tap into some of those large volunteer groups in Ojai. But yeah, so that's all we have for the presentation. Pretty short and sweet. There's a lot of stuff on the webpage. But for anyone that's new, if you guys have any questions, just let us know and I'll stop talking for a little bit.
Dana, if you put down the presentation, then we can see everybody on the screen, and you can just wave at us or unmute yourself and ask a question. Just hop on in.
I have a question.
Okay. Me too.
Diane, you go first. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have a list of questions. Nice to see everybody, and I'm so excited about this project. I've heard negative responses, but whatever. Do we know what kind of plants? I know that's a thing Kathy might know, or I don't know.
Kathy is the chair of the plant subcommittee, the informal plant subcommittee.
Yeah.
Kathy, go.
Super formal thing.
I think you're okay. Yeah, you were. Go ahead and unmute yourself. We have lantanas so far and other succulents. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm working on it with John Lamar.
Oh, good.
And we are looking at a plant palette that's going to look pretty, going to look beautiful, but it's going to be hardy and tough. And we know we have to go through the August, September, potential frost in November that are usually about the middle third week of November, our first frost date. So we're keeping that in mind. Low maintenance. The containers have a watering insert, so the Public Works Department will be watering them that way.
Super. Okay.
So we're working on getting potentially, we're in the works, the soil donated. If not, we have a backup. The City of Ojai Public Works yard has some soil. We'd be amending it per the specifications. We have a list of materials that we started, did a takeoff, hoping to get most of those donated. And then the plant palette, which was your original question. Yeah, we're trying to get actually donated some larger agaves and agave attenuatus, foxtail agaves. And then possibly I have a nursery that said they would donate about 80 lantana. And then I'm trying to figure out on the additional 80 plants, 5-gallon size, how to do it. We're just trying to figure it out. If we could get it all from one nursery, would be great because there'll be separate deliveries, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all in the work. Long answer, but hope that worked.
Super. Yeah, good to know. My other question was regarding how can we alert volunteers? How do we, I guess, just the Rotary Club so far, because one of my ideas is the Bike Club of Ojai.
Yeah, I think I thought that some of you were either a part of that or already in it. Have they already been kind of in the loop? If not, we obviously is a great option.
Well, if nobody has, I will alert the leader. Fozzie is his name.
Oh, that bike club. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Garrett,
Cool.
Totally.
know about it.
Yes.
You know,
Bike club.
I'm also part of the next door thing, so maybe we could try to get volunteers that way, or I can go on the community network on Facebook. I don't know if you guys do that or not. The community network or next door.
Sure.
Cool.
We also post a lot on Volunteer Match. We have a really great history of success on Volunteer Match, getting volunteers. So I think all of those are good. And when it comes to the bike club, one thing that we'll want to talk about as we get closer to the date is some sort of a celebratory ride once we're done, you know, the day that we finish. So that'll be something to really coordinate, get all of us on our bikes and test out the new infrastructure.
Excellent.
Oh, can I just add? We'll add a group called Ojai Ride and Roll. Maybe some of them might be on the call. I don't know, but they can help us get the kids out because we've led bike trains with 100 kids. Yeah,
we can do that. We can
Yeah.
get ride and roll.
Cool.
Dina, do you have a guess or estimate on how many volunteers you're going to need overall?
Yeah, so let me think too. I was working on our timeline. I mean, probably like at least 20 a day. Because we have different, you know, so in the beginning it'll be doing some painting, and there's going to be a lot to paint, and that's a pretty time intensive. The most time intensive part of painting those conflict zones is the measuring and the marking. And then once we have them marked out, the painting is fairly easy, but you know, each conflict zone is going to take several people at least to measure and mark. And so, yeah. And then once we get the plants, you know, even the plants, planting the planters themselves, there are multiple tasks. So it's, you know, moving the plants in the soil down the corridor and kind of actually doing the planting. So yeah, I mean, we're going to need quite a lot. So when we have the implementation set, we are going to make, you know, kind of the digital flyers. They're going to look a little bit different, but we'll have digital collateral that we can send around to you guys to disseminate, that will have the link to the online sign up, as well as just the implementation dates and some of that information. So that will hopefully make it easy for you to just communicate what needs to be communicated and send it out.
Cool.
All of those groups sound good. And then
What else, Diana? Did you have any other questions?
I do. So if February is the removal of the demonstration, I assume it's February. Somebody said 6 months later.
It's 6 months. Yeah.
Can we start now trying to get and keep it the demonstration permanent?
I think what we're looking at is evaluating it during the demonstration project and laying the groundwork if that is possible. So we've talked to Caltrans. We have to go into the permit with the understanding that it is removed at the end of 6 months. They are not opposed to it remaining, but that is not a condition of our permit. So in the event that it is successful and that it is well received and that it is safe, then we can go back to Caltrans and say, okay, now what is the process? But we can't really have that conversation now until we get the actual permit.
Got it. Well, I would love
brought it up,
to.
so.
Okay, I would love to help in whatever means, because this is a lot of work to go to only to undo it. If indeed it does work and people are happy with it, I feel like, gosh, this is going to be such a great facelift for Ojai that we'll want to incorporate it. And my last thought is, can we use any of the money or maybe future money to improve the wonderfulness of our bike path in both directions? But it's starting to deteriorate, and I ride it almost every day in some form, in some place, one place or another, and it's very bumpy. I'm wondering if more people would, because this is going to be a tie-in, if more people would benefit from connecting. It's almost like the Mutilaha area is the connector between, I live on the east end, and going all the way to Ventura is a huge tourist attraction.
You're talking about the Ojai Valley Trail, right? Making improvements to that?
Yep.
Greg, does the permanent ATP project envision anything on the trail itself?
Unfortunately not, no. The project limits are on Route 33, Maricopa Highway, El Roblar to the Y, as well as from the Y on Ojai Avenue all the way out to Gridley. So, and just as mentioned, there is maintenance money set aside for that trail, and it's unusual, but the county originally got grants and has ownership in all those maintenance funds. So they actually own and maintain the Ojai Valley Bike Trail all the way through town, all the way up to Fox Street. The city owns it from the Fox Street to the east. So you might notice we spend a little more care on that. We try to work with them. They used to cooperate better, but I know they're having budget issues too on that whole bike trail. That whole post and rail fence is deteriorating quickly, and they're chasing that.
Yeah.
But anyways, we are trying to work with them to improve that. And we had high hopes with Measure C back in early March when that was passed, that we could maybe help maintain that trail. But of course, since COVID started, the situation's changed. All that high hopes we had for additional infrastructure, maintenance funds are kind of dropped through the floor at this point.
Okay.
Quick question. Did you say we're going to be painting those planters?
No, the planters are the color that they are.
Okay.
Yeah, we're planting them. We're planting the planters.
Yeah, I understood that. I thought maybe you were painting them as well.
No.
Okay.
But the final planters, what will they look like?
Dana, why don't you bring them up? Well, you know what? They come in different colors. We haven't really floated any different colors to Caltrans. We've been showing them the black versions.
Could we get local Ojai artists to paint planters?
Interesting.
I'll jump in on that, and I can just say I wish. But if it was on city's right of way, sure, be great. But on Caltrans right of way, it's a huge process as Tony and Dana are very aware of. Every step of this is
You have to have certain kind of markings on them and stuff, probably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, everything
like
has to be approved through a lengthy process. There's nothing quick about it.
What about the side facing the sidewalk? Or is there going to be a sidewalk? Yeah.
They are going to be oriented. Yeah, there's not really going to be a large face facing the sidewalk, I guess.
Yeah.
They're like the long face is going to be they're going to be
perpendicular. Yeah.
Because these retroreflective stripes here need to be facing the drivers. Yeah, so I mean, to give you perspective on the planters, at first Caltrans was debating only letting us use like traffic control equipment, essentially disguised as planters.
Like orange barrels, sand barrels.
So this is even like letting us use anything different or creative or anything was, we appreciate them working with us on it a lot, but that was like a big deal.
Dana, can you scroll down a little bit so that we can see something? Because I want to point out, we would otherwise, if this were not a state highway, we would paint the buffer area with some color or some art. There would be a more artistic element of this. There are our other projects are more heavily focused on the arts. We're just kind of, we're tied to a bureaucracy that we're trying to work with, and this is what they're going to allow. So
I totally get that. I just
yeah.
You're saying that even the permanent project, they only allow these black and white stripes?
No, so these planters, so remember the permanent project is going to have planted trees.
Okay.
So those, yeah, so these basically the planters are bolted into the ground. They're going to be able to be removed. So the plants are going in the planters, which are removable, and we are spacing them as far apart as the planted trees and the permanent design are going to be to, you know, mimic that design. But for the demonstration project, no, for the permanent project, there'll be planted trees. So it's going to be, you know, it's slightly different, but the goal is to at least test out that element of the design with these barriers. These are they're going to be every 40 feet. So technically 2 parking spaces between each planter. And so yeah, we'll be able to, that's as close as we could match to the permanent design, essentially.
Yeah, we just want to make sure, because we're a very aesthetic conscious community, and we want to up front make sure the public understands that the permanent project will not look like that, the visual, that it's going to be trees.
Right.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah, that's a good reminder.
You
said that last time, and I wonder if we could.
We should update the FAQ. Let's make sure that the language there is super clear.
Yeah, or even in any of the materials that we send out, I wonder if it would make sense to do some sort of like visual comparison. I don't know, just, you know, because.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
no, go ahead.
Okay. The city, at City Council, we had a beautiful demonstration of the project. The visual was just phenomenal, I thought. So, and that's online. I don't know if they can, I'm sure they could edit it. I mean, it's on YouTube. It's on the whole meeting is on YouTube. I'm wondering, those slides may be already posted. I just have to go check.
Yeah, so I think
excuse me.
We wouldn't want to cause any more confusion and have people think that those renderings are what the demonstration project is going to look like, I guess. So yeah, that's a good point. We'll think of a way to make it maybe a little bit more clear now that we actually are putting out there, you know, what the demonstration project is visually going to look like. I think it would help to remind people that it's not going to be the permanent project.
And artistically, I was just going to say, artistically, the signage and banners can be where people express their art.
Well, actually, the signage and banners also have to be approved by Caltrans, and they are also included in the permit set. So
okay, but I thought it was my understanding that people in the community got to be part of that design factor.
The design of the banners themselves?
Yeah.
No. Those designs, it's just informational signs. The banners. And
okay.
And we have.
My bad.
That's okay. We've got. I don't know if those are on the website or not, but we can share those with you, Diana, and with everyone, so that you see it. It's going to have a link to a survey, a link to the Ojai City website. And then just an interesting graphic that shows people riding a bike lane.
It follows it basically just follows the
brand
that just so it can be like easily recognizable, or so people can connect the dots, I guess.
Dana, would it be
Yeah.
good to use the word temporary in there so that people know that the demonstration project is temporary? It's not going to be there forever.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. that'd
Yeah,
be-
I
that'd be-
think when you hear temporary, that means, okay, just for a second.
yes, for sure.
You
I
mean on
think
the banners?
Registers.
Yeah.
Kathy, are
Yeah.
you talking about on the banners themselves?
Yeah, and maybe it's Maricopa Highway or temporary demonstration project. Because demonstration, I mean, I get that a demonstration is like a pilot project and not going to be
Right.
long term, but some people may not
Yeah.
equate that.
Totally.
And so
Yeah.
temporary or something comparable would, clue people in right away.
I think that's a super good idea. It'll also make people, I feel, more open to the project. If they think it's temporary, there's something psychological about that word. They might
Totally.
be actually liking it. So, yeah.
Definitely.
I ask them a
Well,
question
guys.
to somebody else. What? Go ahead. Okay. What are the hours that the contractors are going to, it's going to be probably the heat of summer. What time do you envision the work starts, those 7 days?
We're out there at 8 a.m. or even before then. Our team will be out there deploying materials first thing, and we're there all day. And we're going to be there all day. Volunteers will come and go. We'll have volunteers there usually from 9 to 5. The contractors, we're still working that out and figuring out when they're going to be here.
The volunteers can sign up for time slots from 9 to 5, but rarely do we have volunteers come from 9 for 8 hours.
For the whole time,
but, yeah. So you'll be allowed to sign up for maybe like a minimum 1 hour slot or something like that.
I know you've done projects like this probably hundreds of times, but I'm wondering about the age of the volunteers. Is this appropriate for the older teenagers or young adults?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the older teenagers, even, we've had projects with, elementary school age children where we're painting larger areas. So where we're working in an area for the teenagers, I would say, yes, we can work with teenagers. They're going to be able to move plants around, soil. Think about logistics. A lot of this is not just painting; it's just moving stuff around from one end of the corridor to the other. Wherever we have our launch area, our sort of staging area, we need to distribute materials from there. So it's a lot of moving stuff around. That is easy for teenagers. If we had more painting, I would say yes. I don't feel great about having teenagers painting the conflict zones because those are intersections. So I think that's something that we would let adults do at our team in general because it is an intersection. They will be coned off. They won't be active while we're painting. But either way, I don't feel good about that. So I think we keep the teenagers to planting and moving stuff around.
So you'll be providing us with some sort of a press release that we can share, like with the Boy Scouts, the superintendent of schools, with the dates, the time frame, the kind of jobs, something, and we'll handle it from there.
What we'll do is we'll set up a page on Volunteer Match that has all of the slots available. And then that we'll have that link in that press release for you all to distribute. Because one thing that we don't want also is to have 30 kids all on one day because we simply can't direct all of them at the same time. We want to kind of spread it out so that we have folks. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to videotape this?
Yes. Yes. We're working on securing a videographer, a photographer, drone footage. So all of that is in the works right now. We've got a whole plan for documentation, where we want to take our before and after shots, where we want our time lapse, all of that stuff. So that's all happening right now. This week we've been working on that.
Wow. So one of the things people might be wondering about, how building this demonstration projects, do the bicycles have to, can they still, a lot of people ride on the sidewalk? I'm sure you have a plan for that. Like when people come, the drivers are, I mean, drivers can only go in one lane, right, from the beginning. That's going to be marked off.
From the beginning, we're going to have, it'll start being one lane from the moment that the traffic control is up. The bicyclists will have to use the sidewalk, though I'll tell you, there have been so many times, we don't really have a plan for it. We just allow the bicyclists, if we're not working in the new bike lane, they just use it. And as soon as it's protected, people will start using it. You'll see. We'll take pictures throughout the week of people using the bike lane, even before all of the components have been installed. That is a totally typical and normal thing for us to see.
Thank you. That sounds so great. Thank you.
Bodie, do you have a question?
I just want to say I have a younger brother of mine in high school, so I probably could talk to him. I'm sure maybe some of his friends would maybe want to volunteer.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've tried reaching out to Nordhoff High. I mean, we're working with staff on the installation of the Numina devices, but we've reached out to the administration to try to connect us with the student body, with the student government, and it's been really tough with COVID. I think people were just distracted at the end of last year. So if there are people that are involved with volunteering at the school, and your brother can help us with that. I mean, you didn't say that he went to Nordhoff, but anybody here.
Oh, he did, but yeah.
If you have connections with the student body there, for sure connect us, because we need to talk to them.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of parents out there that are going to be glad for some project for their kids to be doing because they have cabin fever. So I think we can capitalize on that.
Totally.
Yeah.
I did have one more question.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah.
The timing, I think Susa might have mentioned something about how hot it is in Ojai. Is there any flexibility on the 9 a.m. start time? It's practically too hot at 9 a.m. to do outdoor work, especially kids in high school or whatever. So is there, I know it's only 1 week though, so you're just going to do it no matter what kind of weather we get?
We're going to do it. I mean, unless it's raining.
Yeah.
That stops us. No, but the heat does not stop us.
Like Tony said, we are, every day we'll be out there 7:30 setting things up and stuff. So I suppose volunteers could come out early. It does kind of depend on, it's a little bit contingent on when the contractors at least can get going with the striping, because some stuff can't really happen until the striping goes down. It's kind of, some of it has to happen in succession. So I guess we'll be able to create that more detailed timeline once we get an idea of that. But yeah, I mean, I guess if anyone wants to come out and help us at 7,
there's flexibility in the schedule. We're going to be there. Listen, we're from Florida. We're not afraid of the heat.
Okay.
I would maybe dream up some kind of a cooling station.
We will have a tent for volunteers.
And cold drinks and misters. We can have misters so they can get wet.
Disneyland.
Yeah, I don't know about the misters. We will have a tent that is our volunteer check-in tent.
Spray bottles.
Spray bottles. Okay.
People like to spray themselves. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are planning on having water for the volunteers. So that's something we're still asking SCAG if they'll approve that in our budget. But either way, we have to provide the volunteers with water. So we'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. Without plastic bottles, I'm thinking of the environment. If there's an easy way, or encourage people to bring their own bottles. We have
one thing that we've done, and maybe the bike club can help with this, when we used to do bike valet here, and I've seen this in other places, just those large sports coolers, just fill one up with ice and water at the beginning of the day and have that. We have done that before as well. So that might be something, if somebody has that in their garage, or if we can collect a couple of those, that should take care of that.
Yeah,
I have
one.
Cool, Diana, thank you.
I bet
Yes.
the Ojai Valley Green Coalition would love to help with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, Tara.
Oh, good, good. Hi, Tara.
I also, has the Green Schools Collective been contacted and being involved with this?
That's a good call. Yeah.
I can connect that, the Rotary Club, and then I also help with the Boy Scouts. Our
Cool.
area, once
Oh,
that's
wonderful.
ready.
Yeah, and great.
Good.
Cool.
Okay, I'm writing all of this.
The green schools are good. I'm gonna have to sign off. I have planning commission starting in 4 minutes.
Bye.
Okay.
No worries.
Bye, Kathy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Hey, Tara, are you involved in the Rotary for the morning or the afternoon? Like Tony said, they're doing one for the afternoon, the noon one. And
Noon.
you're on the noon one?
Mhm.
Oh, right. Okay, great. Well, that'd be good. I mean, Tony's got that one coming up, and I might join him over there because that's kind of, I think, the older Rotary, not older age-wise, but the older.
Yeah, the old parts are in the morning.
Yeah, and we've, they're the ones that came out for the community demonstration garden. So they'd really like to be involved.
Yeah, I
with
know
this.
they do a lot of volunteer stuff, and they might even, be able to give some funding for plants or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Be a good outreach group. Yeah, nice.
They like
Yeah.
to give out money.
Greg,
And then
actually, Dana's going to be doing that presentation because that's my wife's birthday. I'm taking her out.
All right.
We're going to go to the beach that day.
Well, I run the Zoom meeting for that, so you'll be giving me all the info for that. Just so you
Oh, cool.
Good, good.
Okay. Alrighty.
Cool. That's all we got, guys. Sylvie, you've been silent there.
It looks great. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no, I just was curious because I haven't really been up on all of this that's happening. So I just want to really check in and see, because I think this is a great concept, a great idea, and I really hope it does stay permanent, because I feel like this is, one of many things I think that can happen in Ojai that demonstrates what's possible. So
Cool.
yeah.
Love it.
Well, thank you for taking the time, and everybody, we're very grateful that you've spent this hour with us, and we'll be in touch again very soon. As Dana said, we've got our next Community Advisory Committee meeting on the 15th. So that's we should have a bunch of more updates about permitting and our materials at that time. And I imagine, based on when our anticipated date is, that we're going to have another CAC meeting in August again. I don't think that this one on the 15th is going to be our final one. So we're going to keep on meeting like this until the installation.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, everybody, for
Guys.
participating. Appreciate it.
Nice to
Talk to you
meet
soon.
you, Cindy.
Yeah.
All right, next
Take
meeting.
care.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, Don.
See you later.
See you.